Test 1, 2. The worst thing about doing YouTube is the time. Why? Because everything takes time. And more than that, the setup takes time. And as you can see by the time lapse, this is not a simple endeavor. Things have to be prepared, they have to be set up, they have to be gotten into place. And that is not fun. More than that, it takes time away from the actual content of what I want to do. And so in some respects, it puts up a barrier to actually doing it. How? So I'd say setting this up probably took me about 20 minutes. That's 20 minutes where what I wanted to say and what I thought about saying not only waned, but it was transformed by the act of actually setting things up. I didn't intend to initially talk about setup when I first said about probably an hour ago that I'd like to record something today. That didn't happen. What I thought was I kind of want to talk about what I'm working on and I'd like to update you all. But then that became, so far as I was doing this, a statement on why I have just not been doing anything. And if I'm going to be honest, it's because this type of shit sucks. I hate it. I don't like the setup. I don't like arranging minutia so that everything is just in frame and so that I look good on camera. It's really fucking annoying, and I really hate it. So, you might think to yourself, okay, well, just don't do that. Go back to what you were doing before and make videos where you're not on screen. But, you see, this has a big disadvantage, and that disadvantage is everybody can do that. And a lot of people do that, and there really is no way to assert your own identity when you're just a voice. Of course, you can do it through, let's say, editing, but people don't really like that anymore, because you're still putting up a barrier between yourself and the spectator. When I have my face on screen here, you can see me, more or less. I'm somebody you can look at. We can engage virtually, not really, but virtually, face-to-face. Right? The face-to-face is still mediated by a screen and a camera, but it's still my face. You see me. And that's important, not just psychologically, but for, for me, for saying that, I'm willing to commit my opinions and my voice to an association with this thing called my face that you can just see anywhere and everywhere every day, because you can't avoid it unless I put on a mask, but people don't do that unless, really want to. It's not the norm. There's an expectation that if you show your face, that is you. Plain and simple. And I don't mean to say that showing my face is a tactic in that way, but it certainly makes me feel more validated in doing what I do. And on that end, then, getting this microphone in place and this camera in place, I haven't even gotten out my good camera for this video because that would have taken another 10 minutes to set up, and I really didn't feel like checking all the batteries. But then plugging it into my computer, making sure all the programs work properly, editing the audio, editing the video. Right? This is like a whole procedure that just, I don't know, man. It used to be fun when I was younger, and my actions didn't have many repercussions. Yeah, I could say something, and then I could say, well, I'm just 15 or 16, so what does it matter? I'm a nobody. I'm now going to be graduating from college with a degree in liberal arts and philosophy, and then probably going on to graduate school. I can't quite say that anymore, because not only would it be disingenuous, I think, it would discount what I want to do with my life. So far as, I want to make claims about the nature of human relations as such. Yeah, I mean, a 16-year-old kid can do that, and he can just say, well, these are just my observations, because I live in this world. Yeah, here I am. But I think somebody who's 21, me being 21, it is a bit childish, and I think it's something that I want to leave behind, and, I mean, that's why I've done all this, in an attempt to, take on what I would call a more adult and, let's say, independent persona. And I say independent in synonymity with adult because when I was younger, I mean, it was very easy to just say, oh, I live with my grandmother, I live with my family, I'm just going to say what I want, and I have this, cushion of familial comfort that's going to hold me in place. I can't do that anymore. Of course, I could, but again, I think it would be very disingenuous, and I think it would stymie my entrance into, let's say, full adulthood. So, I mean, with all that in mind, it's just very annoying to do this, especially in tandem with everything else I do. And I mean, I think of ContraPoints and Philosophy Tube on this front because, I mean, Contra dropped out of a PhD program. Can't remember Philosophy Tube's name now, but she, only got her master's in philosophy. They do this full time. This is what they do. Of course, they take philosophical claims and they transform them into something that's readily available for the public sphere, but that's like all they do. The act of sitting in front of a camera and of getting things ready and in place for a public audience is for them the entirety of their work. And of course, editing and the actual performance goes along with that, but I can't say that for me. This is like a hobby that also makes me money, but it's also like, this is not what I'm doing with my life. I'm probably going to be a professor. I mean, do I really want to do that? Yes and no. I mean, I want the notoriety that goes along with that. I want the credentials that go along with that. I want the training that goes along with that. I want to be in this tradition of people who are doing rigorous intellectual work, and I want to be around people who also do that work. And so I would say I want to be a professor more for the social relation than for the labor involved, because I'm fine with the labor. I love reading. That's what I like to do. But I also like creating, and that's why I started doing this. But now, to go back to the matter of time, these things are intersecting in such a way that, like, even sitting down like this and just talking is burdensome, because I'm working on 3 research projects right now. One for my main channel on YouTube that I began back in August, and the research is done, but I haven't written it up yet. Another senior thesis for my major, and another just because I wanted to do more creative work for one of my classes, and there's a good amount of stuff that I haven't learned yet in contemporary, let's say, media theory, and that's what I'm focusing on for that particular project. And so there's this pressure in my mind to learn as much as I can, as quickly as I can. And, like, that is the most important thing to me. But then there's this other sentiment, which is like, okay, you can just learn things forever, but if you don't have any output, if you don't put anything out into the world, who gives a shit? Like, your learning has not become actualized and entered into a public sphere of appearance. And it's this dialectic and this tension that has led me to sit down today and talk, but it still leaves me very annoyed because I still can't do anything about it. Like, I wish I could just sit down and talk. I would love that. That would be awesome. But I can't. This is going to take me 20 to 30 minutes no matter what. That's, let's say, a 48th of my day. If we are, taking away the 8 hours I sleep, that's a 32nd of my day. That's a sizable chunk. It may not seem like a lot. I mean, I don't know what 16 or what 1 over 32 is. I'm not going to do the math in my head. But, we can quantify it like that. And it's not nothing. It's time that I could have been using to further my other research projects. And this is a thought that runs through my mind and has been running through my mind as I've been speaking here. And it's going to continue to run through my mind as I edit the audio and the music and the video and cut out pieces that I don't think are relevant. And it's just annoying. It's just annoying because there never feels as though there's sufficient time to do what I want to do. I could just focus on philosophy, and I would probably be happy with that. But then I would be like every other, philosophy professor who just does that. And that leaves me unsatisfied. Why? Because it's clear that what goes on in academia must have reference to the outside world. I mean, this is an idea I've been committed to for years. And YouTube, for me, and in my opinion, is the vector through which that information can be delivered to the outside world. It's very obvious. I just sit here and talk. But it's not that obvious because you have to go through the setup and the editing. It is increasingly apparent to me that anything that can be conceived of must more and more deal with space and time to mediate it. And of course that's obvious, but it's like the essence of everything. This is only going to look good if the space looks good, and it's only going to seem like a quality video if the time has been put into it to make sure you enjoy it. I can conceive of everything I want to say ahead of time. I can think of it, but that's not in space and time. Space and time are everything, and they are finite. Why? Because I'm gonna die. And maybe all that is a little abstract and like too out there for me to really think about. But it's like when you have 3 or 4 things on your plate, and each of them is worthwhile to you, to choose between any one of them and to allocate finite resources to them is a decision which ultimately impacts all of them. And so then everything becomes caught up in one giant whole, which is just my life and how I'm managing it. And again, that too is a nothing. It's like an empty thought. But it bugs me. It bugs me a lot. Because there's nothing that can be done about it. You just have to choose. And that's ultimately, again, why I've sat down here to talk. The resolution to choose is a hard one, but it's one that has to be taken. Because, and I've only just recently realized this, you can think about things forever, but to choose and to begin to exercise the choice in space and time is the essence of one's actuality, insofar as they have the capacity to choose. And what that means is, it's one thing to simply think about things, and it's another to go about and do them. And the gap between those two is infinite, in a very real way. I'm doing research right now on the philosopher John Dewey's resolution of the mind-body problem. And while I agree with his sentiment that mind is a complexification of the body and of matter in general, this complexification is so rarefied and diffuse that to make the claim that thought can be reduced to what is inhabited in the bodily world and in material is so naive. It's extraordinarily naive. And I've come to think that this is the essence of what adulthood means, that you are not only aware of your own finiteness as a person, but your own embodiment and having resources that you yourself can't fully conceive of, and when you can, you can't fully exercise. It is the perpetual grappling of your own enclosure in everything, in the social world, in the bodily world, in the political world, in the ideological world. And the notion that you are not only circumscribed by all these things, but that you have no choice but to operate within them. Of course, I could go out and, go into the forest like Thoreau and just, beat around the bush all day. And I've considered that, and that's something I may do. But for the time being, I can't, because I'm in a room and I owe rent and I need to eat. And these are all, again, finite issues that have to be maintained. I don't really have anything else other to say than that. Even though this wasn't really anything at all, just expressing some thoughts. Yeah, I can't make any claims and any promises as to when I'm going to have videos out, because honestly, I don't know. All I do know is this is annoying, and I wish it was easier. If anybody knows of any ways to make it easier, I'd love to know. Of course, I could just leave all my shit set up, but then my room's a mess, and I have to sleep here, so that's not going to work either. Well, on that note, I'm going to go. Thank you for watching, listening, or doing whatever you do. This is Shay, otherwise known as Mr. Amazing. Thank you for watching.